Hey everybody, welcome to our new podcast. This is the first episode of Living in the Red, a podcast for and about people who live in red states but don't necessarily align with the red state agenda. I am a content creator and comedian named Cory Bradford, and this is my co-host, Cody.
I'm Cody D, content creator, journalist.
And you do a lot of other things too.
Yeah, what other things am I supposed to say?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like you are a media savvy entrepreneur. Sure. You got a lot going on.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I try to post on social media regularly. Try to. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. That's something I've been trying to do like every day since for a few months. It's a lot of work. I also been hosting a radio show this past summer as well. I worked on Mayor Woodfin's campaign. So yeah, it's been a busy season.
It has been. It's been a busy summer for you. It's been a busy summer for me. I just had my second child.
You did?
Yes, my daughter, and she is keeping me up at night, but it's all good because she's cute, so I'll let her get away with it for now.
For now.
But yeah, so we both had some pretty busy summers, but I feel like this country has also had a very busy summer.
Yeah, a busy 2025.
Yeah, all 2025. It's just been crazy. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot on this podcast.
Right.
The politics of it all, culture, society, everything that's going on. Try to keep it light, but you can only be so light when it comes to the heaviness of some of these topics and some of these situations that's going on in the country today.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think we should take this first episode to kind of tell people who we are and our experiences living in the red, because we were both raised in the red. We're both from the state of Alabama.
Both from Alabama.
And that's a very loaded thing. I think if people are, listening to this and they're not from Alabama, they automatically have so many stereotypes.
They think we walking around with no shoes, on farmland, cotton fields just around the corner.
Yeah.
Not a lot of, a whole bunch of Walmarts and Piggly Wigglies, not a lot of places to shop.
Well, that part is true, though. So
there's a few Walmarts and Piggly Wigglies around town.
Yeah. But a lot of it does depend on like where you live at. Because I know you grew up in the Birmingham area.
I did. Grew up in Metro Birmingham.
Yeah. More of an urban area, a lot more going on here.
Yeah.
I grew up in Anniston, Alabama, which used to be kind of a big city. It has kind of dwindled down. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Back in the day, Anniston was like top 8, top 7 biggest city in Alabama.
Oh, wow. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really big for a long time. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But I want to start by asking you a little bit about your upbringing, because like I just told the audience, we were raised in the red. We were raised in a red state. And you specifically, I feel like you have a slightly different experience than me in just like the environment you were raised in. So talk to me a little bit about what was your neighborhood like growing up?
Yeah. So I always like to tell people that I grew up in the suburbs by way of the east side of Birmingham. I'm very Birmingham through and through, even though I grew up in the suburbs. So my parents, both from the east side, and wanted to raise my brother and I in other parts of the metro area to give us a better education. So I grew up in what is considered unincorporated Shelby County.
Okay.
I jumped around a few Shelby County schools. I went to like Chelsea, Oak Mountain, and then I ultimately ended up going to private school and graduated from John Carroll, for those who know the metro area and know the school systems. Yes, I grew up privileged.
Yeah, because as you saying all of this, I'm thinking this all sounds very fancy.
I mean, sure. I grew up in a gated neighborhood, 4-car garage house, private school. My dad was he worked for many years as a sales accountant at AT&T, or what was Bell South.
Okay.
My mom was a business owner, salon owner for many years, and my dad also had a few businesses he ran as well. So my parents were very much entrepreneurs and were about they were definitely about the dollar, hustling. But
that's what I'm about to say.
Ultimately, they really just wanted us to have a good education and to expose us to a different kind of life than what they had. Because my mama grew up in the projects.
Okay.
So it's not like we came from that. Like my dad was very integral in terms of making sure that we had the best of the best.
Sure.
And
sure.
giving us giving us experiences and letting us live a type of a life that he didn't necessarily have growing up, so that we can have better. I mean, that's essentially the American dream, right?
Sure,
and so that the next generation is able to have better than what you left behind. Us millennials, we're the first ones who are probably not going to be able to really have that. And I say this to my husband all the time. I'm like, we're in our early, going into our mid 30s. Mm-hmm. when I was my dad's age, they were building the house that we grew up in. Like my parents were younger than I am when they started having their family. But yeah, my parents were already business owners and had a few cars and were building, the 4-car garage house that I ended up growing into when I was their age. And so I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm a little behind here. I ain't got no kids, just got married, still figuring out what I'm doing, how I'm going to make my money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how different our upbringings were, but how similar they were. Because, I feel the same way, to comment on the thing about where we are compared to where our parents were at this age. Like my dad was, like you said, building. My dad, his dad was a carpenter. So my dad knew how to build his own house, and he bought a piece of land and physically built his own house when he was my age. So he was building a house. He had a really good job, was holding down the family. And I'm sitting here making TikToks for a living. So
right.
I definitely, there is a...
And our parents looking at us like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, at least on my end, my dad be like, what you doing?
You know what's so crazy? My dad actually likes my TikToks. And that's weird because most people his age, he's almost 60. I think he is 60 now. Oh my goodness.
You don't know how old your dad is?
He's 60. Okay. He is 60.
Let your dad know that you know how old he is.
No, it's just because I had to think about, like, dang, he turned 60 this year. But he is on TikTok. Like, he likes TikToks. He's on there more than most people his age. So he actually likes what I do, sans maybe the language I use. But he likes what I do. And so he's always been very supportive of my creative dreams. But one thing before I get into sort of my upbringing that I have to ask about yours is, I'm curious as to, like, how, if any way, did your parents talk about politics around you? Were your parents political in nature? Did they ever talk about who they were voting for? What kind of political influences did you have around you growing up?
So my grandmother, my mom's mom, was one of the Children's Crusaders.
Really?
By accident, sort of.
Wow.
Yeah. So my aunt and her sister was down there at the marches, Kelly Ingram Park. My grandmother went down there to pick her up. They both ended up getting arrested. So my mom would always take us to the polls and say, you are able to vote, or I am able to vote because of the sacrifice that your grandmother made and that your aunt made. So my parents always let us know at a very early age that voting was essential. It was not a choice. It was required for us to go vote. In terms of the political choice, now I hope my dad don't mind me. I'm putting a little bit of his business out here. But my dad does lean conservatively when he votes locally sometimes.
Okay.
Like he has voted for Bob Riley, who was former
Alabama
governor. Yeah. Because my dad does. And I think he's like a lot of other Black Southerners. You're going to meet a lot of Black people who politically, they do align with the conservative agenda. Not today's conservative agenda. I would say the old school conservative agenda. But never aligned with how conservatives align socially. Yeah. Because, i.e., the racism that comes with aligning with the party socially. So sometimes my dad did vote Republican. But I would say, like, in terms of me and when I became really politically inclined was when President Obama was running. Yeah. And I was 15, 16 years old when he was running, was not able to vote for him the first time. But that was when, like, we were watching CNN around the clock. Yes. We were watching everything. And that was when I became familiar with Donna Brazile, Soledad O'Brien, and Tim Wolfe, and Anderson Cooper. Like, I was becoming familiar with their commentary and their political analysis. And at the same time, I had grown up around mostly white folks. I went to predominantly white schools, K through 12. And when President Obama was running, that was the first time that I was kind of hearing the blatant racism. But at the time, I still was not able to always identify it because I had my own unlearning that I had to eventually do as I went into adulthood. There was a lot of things that were ingrained in me. So white supremacist thoughts that I had that I didn't realize I had until I started reading and doing the learning, essentially. Yeah. And my parents talked about race. Yeah. But it was very much in the context of, racism is bad. Don't trust all white people. If you have a problem with white folks at school, let us know. Because my parents were always very defensive of my brother and I in school. Like, they never just allowed for folks to do whatever. Yeah. So anyway, I just say all that to say, like, there were a lot of things that I was not able to identify that was racist at the time that I now look back at and I'm like, that was racist as fuck.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And now I'm realizing that I think we are literally the same age, because I was about 15, 16 when Barack Obama got in office, and I couldn't vote for him the first time, and I remember the second time. And also, I remember like watching MSNBC, CNN around the clock. I actually even used to watch Fox News a good bit too, because
I never did that.
well, I wanted to get different perspectives. I wanted to get different perspectives on what everybody was saying about it. So I did watch Anderson Cooper. I watched Keith Olbermann and Tim Russert, guys like that. But I also watched Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear what they had to say about things as well. But yeah, I think there is some similarities. Like, it sounds like our parents were very similar. Like, my dad, blue collar, working class guy.
Yeah.
Never went a day without a job.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he had a job when I was born. He has a job now, and he's had the same job for almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. So he was one of those working class, blue collar guys, always held down the family. And I think one of the big things that was different, because the neighborhood I grew up in was not like a poor neighborhood, but it was lower middle class. There was white folks in my neighborhood, but it was mostly black. I was about maybe 2 or 3 blocks from the projects. So my neighborhood over time became more and more hood. Like, when I was young, it was like, okay. But when I was like a teenager, it was like, we might need to get out of here. Like, we hear it. Them is not firecrackers in the background.
I'm weak.
Those are not fireworks. This is not July. Something's going on. We need to find another place
to
live.
Did y'all move?
We did. We did. When I was about 14, we moved to a really small town.
Okay.
It's a town called Munford, Alabama.
I never heard of Munford.
You never will.
Okay.
Other than this podcast. And that's actually where I went to high school at. And
so what happened in Anniston for it to shrink like that? Because you were saying it's a big city.
Mm-hmm.
Did crime go up? And then, I mean, what caused for crime to go up? And
I'm literally writing a book about this right now.
Oh, really?
Yes, because it's a bunch of different things. So one, something called deindustrialization.
Okay,
so
right.
Anniston used to have a lot of foundries and plants.
Yeah.
And
Same as
Birmingham. Yep.
Yeah.
And throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, a lot of them were outsourced to other countries, went to other parts of the country, and nothing replaced it. So a lot of jobs left. Then on top of that, Fort McClellan was a huge army base in Anniston, great source of income and resources. That closed down around 1999, and that just immediately shrunk the city.
Okay.
And then on top of that, Anniston was poisoned by a company called Monsanto. I can say that. They've changed their name like 3 or 4 times there.
They're trying to escape the responsibility.
It was a chemicals plant there. I think they made like pipes or something, and they used this chemical called PCBs. I don't know the scientific term for it, but we just call it PCBs. And they were dumping the PCBs in the creeks and the soil on mostly the west side of the city, which was the black part of the city, where my grandparents was from, where a lot of my family was from. My dad grew up on that side of the city. When I was born, my parents was living on that side of the city. And so around the early 2000s, people started figuring out something's not right here. Johnny Cochran got involved. There was a huge lawsuit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a lot of the residents of Anniston got money for that lawsuit. I personally got a $2,000 check when I was 19 years old. Yeah, it was not a bad little chunk of change at 19, But my parents got way more. They got, I don't know how much they got. They never let me know. But it was in over 10,000 a piece, probably.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of one of the reasons how my dad was able to build that house that I told you about earlier. But that the poisoning from that chemicals company, the closing down of a military base, the leaving of all the jobs, it just shrunk the city over because when I was born there in the early 90s, it felt like I was in somewhat of a big city, like not quite as big as Birmingham, but something close to that. By 2002, 2003, I'm like, where'd everybody go?
Yeah.
And we left, I think, around 2005. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what happened in Anniston. But growing up there, like I said, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. We always had what we needed. Yeah. My dad always provided for us. And I always say the one difference between me and a lot of other kids in my neighborhood was I had a dad who was always there, always present, and he always had a job. And a lot of the kids in my neighborhood didn't. A lot of them were growing up, without their parents or without their dad, I should say, in their life. And I think me and my brother, we grew up we were like so different from the people that was in the same neighborhood as us. Like,
and you think it was because of your dad's influence?
Yeah, I think it was. He gave us a real stable environment to grow up in. We was nerds, straight up, just super nerds.
Yeah.
Like, I was a history nerd. My brother was a science nerd. We was always in the library. We was always reading books, watching documentaries. And my parents were not nerds like that. It was almost kind of like, if you ever seen the show Frasier, like my dad was like Frasier's dad. He was like, how did you kids get like this? Like, what is this? And it was just, but he didn't discourage it. Like, he wasn't against it. He definitely encouraged all of our passions and pursuits. And when I got into high school, I started discovering that I was really, after my failed attempt at becoming a rapper,
I would have loved to see that.
I did that for a few years and I took it very serious, but it got me into writing. And then I started writing ideas for like movies and TV shows. And that's what got me into the idea of film school. And I eventually did go to film school. My father was very supportive of that. Me and him both got into a lot of debt behind me going to film school. So I'm gonna pay you back, Dad, once this podcast gets off the ground. But yeah, he was always very supportive. And as far as politics goes, my dad's not a very political person. Like my granddad, his dad was. So kind of similar to your story, my granddad was very involved in the civil rights movement in Anniston. He always talks about how he met Martin Luther King Jr. multiple times because in Anniston they had something called the Freedom Riders, where black and white people would ride the bus together, and they bombed it. They bombed the bus in Anniston. This is like 1964.
Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, the Freedom Riders.
Yeah, my granddad was, not on that bus, but was present that day helping people get off the bus when it was burning up. Martin Luther King came to the city probably a week or two later, and he got to meet him. And my granddad became good friends with John Lewis because they were a little closer in age. And so he showed me the pictures of them together, and he was real good friends with John Lewis. And so he had that revolutionary spirit in him. He was one of the first black people to run for office in Calhoun County, which is where Anniston is.
Yeah.
He ran for county commissioner in 1970. And so I think that's where I get a lot of my political background from.
Yeah.
But my dad was not political at all.
Yeah.
Like, he never really talked about politics, and he never really trusted politicians. He just was one of those guys that was like, they're all out for themselves. They're not really out for us. So he never really paid attention to elections. But my mom, on the other hand, super political. I remember when Bush and Gore was running against each other.
Yeah.
And my mom, it was raining that day, and she came back from the polls. And I was like, what were you doing all day? And she was like, I was standing in line to vote. And I remember asking her, who did you vote for? And she was like, Gore. And I remember being like, why? Because at the time, I was a kid, so I didn't know the politics of it.
Yeah.
And I thought George W. Bush was like funny. I thought he was a funny guy.
Yeah,
and
he's
so,
a dumbass.
Well, yeah. And he's still very funny. But I was like, why didn't you vote for Bush? He's funny. And my mom was like, Gore is going to do more for us. And I was like,
yeah,
I didn't really understand that at the time. But later, as I got older, I realized, my mother was really what they call a blue dog Democrat.
Yeah.
She voted Gore,
she's
Kerry,
92%.
Obama. Yeah. Like, she just, to this day, Kamala, Hillary, like, she voted for all of them.
Of course.
And so, because that's the people that she felt like was going to better serve her interests.
Yeah.
And so, I guess from my mom and my grandfather, I kind of got that political spirit, even though my dad wasn't really into it. But from my dad, I got the more creative stuff because he was very much into like movies and music and stuff like that when he was younger. So that's where I kind of got my creative stuff. And still to this day, my creative side and my political side are just fighting it out. I don't know who's going to win, but we still, because you've seen my stuff on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and you are both kind of in that same boat where like we have the things that we're passionate about and the things that we want to talk about. But that creative side, it's like, which one is going to win? Because we've talked a lot, behind the scenes about what is acceptable to say and what is not now because of the current political climate.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like the creative side of us wants to jump out and say, all the FUs to the long list of people that we want. But then it's like, okay, how is this going to hold us back in terms of being able to grow our platforms creatively?
Sure. Yeah, that was my whole thing. It's like I think about some of the things that I do online. It's like I get a lot of views and I've gotten a lot of, brand deals and success from it. But at the same time, it's like if I ever do want to go back to that corporate 9-to-5,
man,
and they look at all this stuff I've done, they're gonna be like,
man,
Cory, I just don't know. I'm looking at you seem like a smart guy, but you got a mouth on you.
I mean, you've gotten that.
Yes. I have gotten that before.
And I've gotten that.
I've had people tell me literally, I've had employers basically say, I want to hire you, but I can't because of your social media presence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yet we're seeing this overhaul that's happening in the journalism industry, which is, why I'm not even sure, call myself a journalist, ex-journalist, former journalist at this point. But we're seeing people pick and choose who gets to bend the so-called ethics of journalism and who gets to continue to ride the wave. I mean, Kataya what's her name? Karen Ataya, which I hope I'm saying your last name right, sis. But she was fired last week from the Washington Post. She was the last Black person to be an opinion columnist for the Washington Post, and she was fired for tweeting a quote that was a direct quote from Charlie Kirk.
Oh, wow. Yes, and I think I heard about this. I think Obama was actually sharing a little bit about her story, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So, I mean, So we're seeing people pick and choose in the industry what's allowed and what's not in the journalism industry and who is upholding the ethics.
Yeah, rules for what was it, rules for thee but not for me or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. Certainly ain't for me.
Yeah, not for us.
Yeah, no.
100%. I'm curious. I want to go back a little bit because I'm curious about your high school experience, because you said you went to a private high school.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you had, forgive me for saying, but a little bit of a bougie high school experience. Would you say that's an accurate assessment?
You know, maybe. I think so. Yeah, it was. Yes, I don't know. I think for me, like I don't view myself. I mean, my husband likes to remind me, Cody, not everybody can grow up privileged. You know, I don't consider myself. I think everybody should be aware of their privileges in the world,
sure.
right? And I don't think that white privilege is the only kind of privilege that exists.
Sure.
Everybody has different types of privileges in the world, and it's up to you to be able to understand the nuances of that. And so, sure, I grew up having a little bit more than maybe what some other people had. But the high school I went to, I would say, was mixed income. Like, yeah, you definitely had people who had money, okay? Yeah. The Shanaras, Alexander Shanara is a graduate of my high school and his whole family.
Oh,
so
wow.
there's, the Brunos, the family who used to own the Bruno grocery stores.
Yeah.
They're graduates of my high school. So, yes, there is money there. But you also had a lot of people whose parents sacrificed for their kids to be able to go to John Carroll because they knew it was a better option than maybe sending them to whatever school that they were zoned for.
Sure.
And there were scholarships that were offered for those people. And so there were some people who lived in the city who came to the school too, who were on discounted tuitions. So sure, there was some bouginess in there, and there was some ratchetry. And as crazy as this may sound, that was the blackest school I had been to up to that point.
Really?
Yes, because the schools that I was zoned for, the public schools I was zoned for, were very, very white. So, like I said, I grew up in Shelby County. If you look up Shelby County, any Shelby County statistics, Shelby County is listed number one as like one of the wealthiest counties, one of the best of this, one of the best of that. Yeah, there's a lot of wealth that's concentrated in the county. Whereas, like I told you, the high school I went to was mixed. People from all over the city, and both Jefferson and Shelby County went to the school.
Sure.
And so there was a good number of black people who went to the school. I had my first black teacher at that school.
Wow.
So I feel like I had a more nuanced experience than what it actually sounds like.
Yeah.
And even though I went there, my parents were very much proponents of, okay, we're giving you this education. Like, yes, we're putting you in schools where you're predominantly around white people, but you're going to an HBCU. And
you did.
And I graduated from Tuskegee University.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you studied English at Tuskegee?
Yeah, I have my degree in English from Tuskegee. English literature arts, I think.
Was that a big transition going from that kind of school to an HBCU?
So I actually went to Stillman first. So Stillman's a smaller HBCU in Tuscaloosa. I went there first for 2 years. Yes.
To say the least.
It was a cultural shock for me. I don't know if it would have been the same culture shock if I had started off at Tuskegee.
Yeah.
Because the thing that a lot of people don't understand about HBCUs is that there's diversity in HBCUs.
Yeah, of course.
There are different mixes of black people who go to HBCUs. Now, I think that level of diversification depends on which HBCU you go to. No shade.
Sure.
There's levels to this, okay? And Tuskegee just happens to be at the top, okay? So, yes, my experience at Stillman was vastly different than that of Tuskegee. At Stillman, it was a lot of first-generation college students, a lot of people there who weren't really taking their education seriously, or were there to get refund checks, or just were there to play football. It is what it is. Like, you do what you got to do to survive for the time being. Sure. But when I went to Tuskegee, the energy was a little bit different. There were more people there who I felt like were taking their education seriously, and they were third, fourth, fifth generation college students, or they had a legacy at Tuskegee.
Wow.
So I was meeting black kids who came to Tuskegee from the UK, people who lived in Barbados and Jamaica who were coming to school there. And that was when I was exposed to variations of blackness that I didn't know existed. Because being here in Alabama, you would think everything's just black and white. Yeah, you may have a couple of Asian people, a couple of Hispanic people, maybe some South Asian people, and that's pretty much it. But everything, at least for me growing up, very black and white.
Yeah.
So going to Tuskegee and meeting black people who knew how to speak Spanish or patois or, had the British accent, I was like, that was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, that would have been a very eye-opening experience. My college experience, so I started at UAB.
Yeah.
And I went there for like a half a year.
How was that? Because I feel like whenever I meet people who live in more rural areas and then come to Birmingham, they kind of make it seem like it was like a big city move. And I'm like, really?
It kind of felt like that because I was living right there on the south side.
Okay.
And I liked my experience, but I wasn't quite ready for it. Like, just
In what way?
my personality, like I just wasn't ready for college. I think I should have took a gap year or something. Like I went to college straight out of high school, and when I got there, the work wasn't overwhelming. I had a 4.0 my first semester.
Oh, okay.
Well,
let them know.
Yeah, I gotta let them know. But but I wasn't socialized great. It was a big transition going from, because I graduated, like I said, in a really small school called Mumford, which is like literally like 110 people in my graduating class. Going from that to UAB was a bit of a transition, and I don't think I was quite prepared for it. And then after UAB, I didn't even have a major. I was kind of leaning towards political science. I was taking political science classes and pre-law classes, but I just kind of fell out of love with it. And then I told my dad, I was like, you know what? I really want to make movies. Like, that's what I want to do. And he was like, well, go to film school. And so that's what I did. I went to California, San Francisco, the wrong part of California. I should have went to LA, but I went to San Francisco, the Bay Area, and I lived there for about 2.5 years, and I got a degree in film.
So were you, like, I hope you don't mind me asking this. This is where my journalism is going to come out, because I'm nosy and I'm picking out the things that you're saying. So did you used to be like a little more socially awkward?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Super socially awkward.
Were you picked on in high school?
For like the first week or two.
And then what happened?
Well, once they saw that I was not really a person that they should try that with.
How did they know that not to try that with you, though?
I'll say this, like, Anniston is kind of a rough area, and that's where I came from.
Right.
And then when I went to high school, I went to Mumford, which is like a little country, kind of backwoods town.
Redneck.
Yeah, very much so. And so when I first got there, I was actually in 8th grade when I first got there, and I was real quiet. I was a little awkward. And then, people try to, play you. They try to, pick with you. And I was like, very quickly they realized, oh, this fool from Anniston. We really don't need to mess with him. And so,
is that all you had to let them know? Was that you was from Anniston?
No, I had to do a couple of other things.
Like
but,
what?
Well, I mean, you gotta, show them who they messing with.
You hit them?
No, I did not hit anybody.
I'm trying to understand. The people want to know now. Like,
I threatened to hit them.
Okay.
I threw a couple of chairs.
Oh, you was doing that?
Yeah. Like the folded chair, like like Kurt Angle, kind of like WWE, because like. You throw a chair. I got it from the Boondocks. If you throw a chair, people will automatically be like, "Oh, okay, this fool.
He got crazy.
Yeah, we're not gonna mess with him." And they never bothered me again.
So wait, what about the other black people who went to your high school?
It was a pretty black high school. It was about 40-60. It was about 40% black, 60% white.
Okay, so you had your crew of black folks.
I did for a little bit. I did have.
Or did they clown you too? And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to understand, because you do kind of remind me of like some of the guys I went to high school with. Where it was just like, now he cool, but he's like, he's different. Like he's in his own.
Yes.
He's in his own. But he still like had his friends or whatever.
Yeah.
We just knew who he was and we respected it, but we just knew that he was different.
Yeah, that was like that pretty much with my entire high school, black and white. I was a hood nerd.
Yeah.
So I was like nerdy, but I was also a little crazy. And so they were kind of like, I had friends and I had people that I would hang out with, but there was always this kind of like, he's certainly different. Like there's something a little,
he's certainly different.
He's something a little off about him, and so that was my experience. And, I carried a lot of that to college, and I had to kind of grow up and grow out of that. And so going to California really helped me develop my personality, because the Bay Area, I can't think of an area that's more different from Alabama than the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
Like it was like a different country.
Very liberal,
Super
very
liberal.
Asian. It's very gay. It's very
all of those
techie,
things.
progressive. All the things. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all those things, and it was interesting. Like I said, I had never even, I don't think I had been west of Mississippi before I moved to California. Like I had never been north of Tennessee. Like I had only been in this little zone,
in this area,
and then I went clear across the country to this place that was very unfamiliar.
But did you feel like you were more comfortable there?
Oh yeah.
Like you felt like it was easier for you to find your people there versus like being at UAB.
Oh yeah, I've to this day, some of my best friends ever as the people that I went to college with there. I found my tribe, so to speak, and it was very diverse. I had white friends, black friends, Asian friends, like people from Saudi Arabia, like everybody you can think of. And so it was really interesting learning about all those different cultures. Very similar to kind of like you at Tuskegee, learning all these different people, these different backgrounds, different types of black people, different types of white people.
Yeah,
it was very interesting. And I know that kind of talking about like comparing, the blue places to the red places. Mm-hmm. You also lived outside of Alabama, but you lived in another red place, and that was
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
So how long did you live in Texas for?
I was in Texas for 3 years. I was in Austin, Texas for 3 years.
Oh, but that's not red.
No. No.
I'm thinking you was in like San Antonio or
No.
something.
But even if I was in San Antonio
That's
is
not
still
super red either.
Yeah, it's not really red either. It's Mexico City.
Yeah, Austin, that was the place when I was in San Francisco. All my friends were like, we got to get to Austin. That was the place everybody wanted to be at that time.
Yeah, Austin has changed a lot. I absolutely love Austin. I try to go back every year and visit and hang out for a little while. But, I do feel, I don't feel like I had a traditional red state experience living in Texas because so much of my time was in Austin. And it's a dichotomy. It's a blue bubble in this big red state. The capital of Texas is there.
Yep.
And I worked in the tech industry at the time. So a lot of the people that I was interacting with were other people of color, or were of the LGBTQ community, or were also transplants to Austin as well, and came from other liberal places for the most part. And if they didn't come from other blue states, they kind of had like the liberal mindset. I mean, I won't say you can't live in Austin because the city has definitely transformed since the pandemic with the resurgence of, not the resurgence, but with the implants of all the techie people who have moved to the city over the last few years. But if you were outwardly Republican, you were kind of side-eyed a little bit to an extent, right? But I think for white people who lived in Austin, I think there's always a certain level of boldness that they're able to operate within that I can't identify with. So even if they were, a Republican, some of them didn't mind saying it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Austin for me, it's hard for me to say because I went from being in a predominantly white schools most of my life to being at an HBCU for 5 years to being back in white spaces. I had to relearn white folks. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I can't trust y'all. I forget y'all are slick and messy on the low. So I don't know. And I was in my early 20s. I was starting my career. So like at the time I was just trying to figure out like, okay, what is going on? Because I was there when Trump was elected the first time. I was living there, and I remember specifically looking at the county by county map to see, okay, who am I surrounded with? What's going on? And it was still blue, but I remember things being kind of awkward in the office around that time too. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Politically in Austin, I don't really feel like I really had a lot of I guess what you would consider red state experience.
Yeah, because it feels like Austin is sort of that liberal enclave that's surrounded by red.
Definitely.
And it also seems like the people, it's almost like a thing of if you are a liberal in Texas, then you're going to go to a place like Austin for kind of a safe haven.
Yeah.
As opposed to living in a place like Dallas or Houston where, you would think with those cities' populations that they would be more liberal, but they're really not.
I think Houston is a little bit.
A little bit.
You're gonna find, I think, a dot in Harris County and then everywhere else surrounding it. I mean, because Houston's so big.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're in Harris County, I think that's pretty much the only blue area. And then I think like a speck in San Antonio, and then what they call the Valley. So if you go like South Texas, close to the border of Mexico, it's pretty blue too. But yeah.
Yeah. And have you ever spent so that's basically Alabama, Texas. That's basically the two places you've lived the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've never lived anywhere else. I would love to move again, but who knows?
Yeah, for me it's Alabama, California, and then
you were in
New York. Yeah, I spent some time in New York, and that was interesting. New York City was cool. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be because I don't know. I watched a lot of like old movies about New York from like the 70s and 80s, and I'm thinking it's going to be like I'm walking here, that kind of thing, and it was very like young millennial, anxiety-ridden people who were mostly liberal, but it wasn't even that political, honestly. Everybody was just trying to figure out how to survive. So it was very survival mentality. We didn't have time to think about like, this, healthcare, like we gotta.
Because y'all gotta go pack up y'all's laundry and walk down 15 flights of stairs and walk 3 blocks to go do your laundry.
How did you know that I had to do that?
Because that is, look, I always said I ain't never living in New York City unless you can guarantee me I do not have to leave my place to wash my clothes. That is not normal living. I'm sorry.
You're going to have to have a good bit of money if that's the way you want to live in New York.
Which is why I'm not going right now.
I lived in Queens, and yes, I did have to walk maybe 3 blocks to get to my laundry mat. And
you probably weren't living in a high rise if you were in Queens, though. So you probably didn't have to walk down too many flights of stairs.
It was a 4th-floor walk up, and I was on the 4th floor.
Yeah.
So it was a decent amount of steps.
Yeah.
And so I did laundry every weekend, and it sucked.
Yeah. See, that takes up all your time.
Yeah. My weekends was all just errands, maintaining city life, like running errands, cleaning laundry, groceries. I didn't even get groceries.
Did you work in Manhattan?
I did. Yeah.
So that train ride was how long?
50 minutes.
See, that's
45,
crazy.
50 minutes. And that's if it wasn't breaking down in the middle of the city for some random reason that no one could tell us about. Yeah. That was my big thing with my employer in New York, is like I wasn't late every day, but I was late a couple times. And one day my boss just got on to me. He was like, look, you got to be here. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in Queens, and I told you my situation. He's like, no, I don't care about that. You got to be here. And I was like, okay, I'll be there on time.
I tried to explain to my boss when I was in Austin, because I worked downtown Austin. Yeah. And they had parking decks for us. So we all had different parking decks. My parking deck was like 4 blocks away. Ooh. And it was uphill. Oh, and I would get into the office maybe like 8:05. Yeah. You know, in my mind, I'm like, I'm on time. He was like, Cody, you have got to be here no later than 8 o'clock. And I was like, look, this is a cultural issue. That's what I tried to tell him.
I said the exact same thing about boss. I was like, you don't understand CP time.
Right. This is CP time.
I'm actually early for CP time.
And I will stay later, okay? Yeah. But don't get on to me about no 5 minutes, okay?
Yeah. 5 minutes is, traffic. You got to account for traffic.
Exactly. And I got to walk uphill every day to get here. 4 blocks uphill, yeah.
And I think we're both night owls, so I think we struggle in the morning.
I want to try. I've been saying for years that I want to become more of a morning person. I don't know.
It's not going to happen. And I'm gonna tell you why, because I'm gonna tell you, it's genetic. It's like they've done a study on this. Night owls and morning people, that's a genetic thing. Like you can't do nothing about it. And I tried to tell it to my boss. He wasn't really trying to hear it. But I'm just saying, like, that's a thing.
Genetic from who?
Somebody.
Okay, well,
there's somebody in your in line, because
my parents were pretty early. But I don't know, maybe
you could have got it from a great grandparent.
I do think it's genetic though, because I was told I've been like this since I was a toddler.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to change it though, because I do feel more productive when I actually am up and going by 8 a.m.
Same here. But I think what helps with both of us, our spouses are both morning people.
Yes.
And we're the night owls.
Yes.
So it's kind of good, because then you get that few hours at night where
you'd have time to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Leave me alone.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, because this is something I'm always interested in about people who, come from Alabama. Do you feel like Alabama, growing up here, and you've got a good sense on this because you grew up around a lot of white people. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like
I grew up around a lot of white people.
Well, I did too, sort of. So do you feel like Alabama was more racist or less back in the day compared to like the Trump era? Like, do you feel like, because my whole thing is, I feel like back then it wasn't as racist. I feel like you didn't hear about race as much. I feel like people were, if they were like that, they kind of kept it to themselves. I had little incidents here and there. The middle school I went to was in a place called Oxford, Alabama, which Oxford's right next to Anniston. That place was a little more white than the Anniston schools I went to, so I had some incidents there. But generally speaking, I went to a real country high school, and there was never a lot of racism there until Obama got in office, and that's when people started kind of showing their true colors. I'm curious, was that a similar situation with you in the schools that you went to?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think President Obama's run definitely brought the racists out, but I don't think I can really say whether 20 years ago versus now was more racist. It's hard to quantify when there's so much misinformation out there. That's right? True. Because, for instance, like with the death of Charlie Kirk, there were so many women, white women, that I'm still friends with on Facebook, because I've slowly been purging my Facebook list over the last couple of years, because I'm like, some of y'all I don't talk to, some of y'all are stupid. But there were some educated white folks, or white girls specifically, that I expect better from, who I would think are able to see the nuances of a person, right?
Sure.
So was Charlie Kirk all bad all the time, 100% of the time? No. I don't think anybody is.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he create some healthy level of conversation sometimes? Sure. But you can't negate the fact that he also said things that were racist, that were homophobic, that were xenophobic, and that ultimately his organization, Turning Point USA, was funded by conservatives to push a white supremacist agenda, period. And so if you were not able to see the nuances of that, and not, it makes me question how educated are you really? How informed are you really? Because I went to high school. This high school I went to was, look, if you had anything below like a 3.2 at my high school, you were kind of considered dumb. Like, for real. Yeah.
Really?
Like, my high school was academically rigorous.
Yes.
And so, and most of the kids that I went to school with went to pretty decent schools and had scholarships. And so, you know, these are people that I saw who performed well in school, went on to go to college. Some of them went on to continue their education past a bachelor's degree. And I'm like, but yet you are posting all this stuff about how Charlie Kirk was this great man of God and da-da-da. And I'm just like, how are you not understanding the nuances? How are you, not even just with Charlie Kirk, but with anything that I feel like is MAGA related or conservative or right leaning, is how can you see this and not hear the concerns of other people? How can you see me on your Facebook feed and say, okay, Cody is a Black woman and she says this? How can, what am I missing? What is the context that I'm missing or not understanding about this topic that she's presenting? Let me go educate myself. Let me go have a conversation with her. And I mean, and I try to do that too.
Yeah.
When it comes to the opposite side, it's just that the justifications on the opposite side usually tend to be stupid as hell. So there's no, justification for me when it comes to that. So it's just hard for me to say whether or not things are more racist today than before, when there's just so much misinformation out there and people seemingly are lacking in having nuanced conversations.
Do you feel like there were any white liberals at your high school? Like,
Very
did you
few.
see that? So you didn't see that very often.
No, very few.
And I feel like that's
And there were a few that converted. I will say that there were a few people where, it's very interesting when George Floyd was murdered. And, there was all this, oh my God, Black people, we didn't know that you were suffering like this when that was happening.
I remember.
There were a lot of white people I went to high school with who were then posting. This one guy in particular, I will never forget, he said, I was taught that Black people were inferior and lazy. And now I have taught myself otherwise.
Wow.
And I remember telling him, I said, thank you so much for admitting this and for doing the work to unlearn that. Because that's what it takes. It takes you literally deciding that I'm going to unlearn this. Yep. And so, there was real progress there, right? So I was glad to see, like, okay, some people I went to high school with are unlearning and are doing the work to learn better. And so I just assumed that even if you were Republican and you choose to still be a Republican, there was at least some knowledge or some accountability that you are taking and understanding the nuances of things. And today, I don't see that.
It's like the reverse
anymore.
now.
Yeah,
right?
it's like we made progress at one point, and now we've completely reversed in the last 5 years. And I'm like, how the did we get here so quickly?
Yeah, I think the same thing kind of happened in the '60s. I think that they were making progress towards something, and then I think too much progress happened at one time, and then there were certain white people that said, no, not all that, and then there was kind of a reversal, I think, in the '70s and '80s. But that's interesting that you said that there weren't a lot.
But not like this and not that quickly.
No, this has been rapid. This is unprecedented.
Yeah, this is unprecedented. Like, that's what I want people to know, because I feel like too many people are trying to normalize what's happening today by trying to justify the things that happened in the past. And I'm like, this is not the same thing.
Yeah, no, not
in the least bit.
Not even a little bit. But it's interesting that you said you didn't have a lot of like white liberal friends or people in general that were white liberals at your high school, and I think that's a class thing, because I went to a fairly
let me be clear, my school wasn't just private, it was also Catholic.
Oh, well,
it was a Catholic
I mean,
school.
You said John Carroll, so yeah, I should have known. But that solves it all. That proves everything. Because with my high school, there was like this bubble of white kids who lived in the country, but they were left leaning and they were a little liberal. And to this day, like, what people don't understand about the South is that you have these people in the South that are white, that understand, hey, like, there is a certain amount of privilege that I have that's different from this other person. Even if we have the same income level and we live in the same neighborhood, that person is 10 times more likely to get stopped by the police than I am. Mm-hmm. And they understand it. And so I had a few, not a ton, but a few white friends who understood the nuances, who understood, there is something going on here. And it's crazy to think that in a school where you would seem to have more education, there was less of that. And I think a lot of that has to do with class. I think a lot of that has to do with, I feel like more wealthier white people tend to kind of insulate themselves in this bubble.
And that's why it's confusing, because it's like you are smarter than all these other people who choose to vote against their own interests. You know better.
Yeah.
You know better. But you choose not to do better because I don't want to give them my extra tax dollars. Why would I do that if she needs to get off of welfare. Yeah, she needs to get off food stamps. I don't want these people to have health care. Expand Medicaid. Why would I give my tax dollars for that? I need to go buy an extra boat for the lake this summer.
And meanwhile, when you think about all the money that we spend bombing other countries, and when you look at like, I think it's something like 65 cents on the or something a year is how much the average person, or I think it's like $10 a year or something. I have to fact check this, but I think it's like $10 a year out of the average person's paycheck goes towards welfare, or food
social
stamps
programs,
or anything like that. Compared to how much more money we're
spending on wars,
and all this other stuff
that ain't got nothing to do with us.
No, it hasn't had anything to do with us for a while. Never really had anything to do with us.
No, it's just about being able to try to keep rank in the world. Like the U.S. is just feeling like, oh yeah, we got to go align with this country and we need to bomb them so that we can reign supreme in being a world leader.
Yeah.
Whatever that's supposed to mean.
Well, I don't think we're much of a world leader.
No,
now.
I mean, we're slipping. Every day. I read today that today the U.S. dollar is weaker than it's ever been. Something about like it's decreased in value by 15%. More than it has in the last, I think, like 30 years. Like it's never decreased this quickly in U.S. history.
Yeah, we're going to get to a point of like deflation at some point, which sounds good, but at a certain point, that's actually going to be really bad for like farmers and there's certain industries.
Right, because it means your money's not worth anything.
Yeah, it would be bad, especially in people who take out like debt and stuff like that. It'd be bad for them.
What's that going to mean for our student loans? Because I ain't been.
I'm just like not even really paying attention. I pay my student loans.
Oh yeah, you better than me. Yeah, okay.
But I pay some of my student loans.
Okay.
I don't pay all my student loans because some of them, my whole thing with student loans is you told me that I would get a really good job if I went to this college. When I get the really good job, I'll pay back the student loans. Until then, we will see I want to see how high they're going to go with this interest thing. Because I just want to, at some point, there's got to be a ceiling. There's got to be at some point, you would think they would look at themselves and say.
The interest rate for our loans are the same as the Fed rate, right?
If you got a public student loan.
Oh, I think all of mine are public.
Yeah. But if you did something stupid like me and got a private student loan, then that doesn't necessarily the case. But I only got one private student loan. And I paid most of it off. So
that's the one you're focused on.
Yeah, that's the one I'm focused on. That one.
Okay. Yeah.
The government, they'll get their money.
Yeah.
I'll get back.
Yeah, it's reparations.
IOU. Well, hey, there you go.
I always, whenever I hear about something that like I gotta like whatever debt I have, I'll be like, man, reparations.
If it's a public debt,
y'all are not getting it. Yeah,
if it's a public, like I feel like I shouldn't have to pay taxes. Like
absolutely, I'm not ever.
If they would do that, see, that's what when people ask me about reparations, they ask me all the time, like, okay, what do you feel about reparations? I'm like, give me something other than just money. Like, give me like a tax break.
That's the problem.
Land.
That's
or
the
something.
thing that's annoying about the conversation is, or just the conversation around reparations. I don't want to keep bringing up Charlie Kirk, but I just know that like he brought up this argument about what is it that Black people are owed, right? And I think that people are not understanding that reparations does not just have to be a check. It could be in the form of free education, free health care, free mental health services, a certain amount of money given on your first home, just something like that. But like, no, like as long as the current systems that exist in this country are intact, Black people are never going to get anything.
Not from the government. They have to get it themselves. And
no,
that's how it's always been for us. We kind of have to do it on our own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how it is. But yeah, like I've always said that about reparations. It should be because they was the 40 acres and a mule. Like that was what they were supposed to give the people during Reconstruction. They never gave it to us.
Never got it.
And so it's kind of like that's back pay at this point.
Yes.
That's 150 years of back
interest
pay.
On that bitch.
The interest is insane. Oh yeah, I think I mean on the there's an episode of The West Wing where they try to calculate. Like how much would you owe Black folks?
The U.S. would be in debt.
It's in the trillions of dollars.
It's quadrillions of dollars.
Yeah, it's at this point.
At this
with the inflation rate,
interest and all the people who are descendants. Yeah, y'all don't have it.
Yeah, they don't have it.
Y'all should have paid it 200 years ago, or 150 years ago.
So just forgive the student loans and give me a couple tax breaks, and maybe we'll call it even.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's the one thing I do tell people about reparations is that if they ever did do something like that, which they never will, but if they ever did do something like that, I feel like they would then use that as an excuse to then not fix the systems, to not fix systemic racism and institutionalized racism. Because
they're not doing that anyway.
I know.
Y'all not gonna do that anyway, so just give me a check in the meanwhile. Shit.
So you saying, look, y'all ain't going to fix it anyway, so just give me the money.
Yeah, something.
Give me the money, I'll run.
Shoot,
I'll go to another country.
Do you know how difficult it is? Look, my husband and I were talking about, okay, what's it going to look like for us to have children?
Yeah.
And I'm having to remind him, do you know how dangerous it is for me as a black woman to have a child in the state of Alabama?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, somebody need to write me a check somewhere, like I need to have this child for free. And I need to have a night nanny, okay?
The night nanny and the night nurse.
And a tummy tuck afterwards, okay? All of that.
Well, I don't know if they're going to cover the last two, but they should cover in the UK, you have a baby and you don't own nothing. And then here, my first son, we had him right during the pandemic, and my wife had insurance, but it wasn't great insurance. And we got a check in the mail, oh, yo, $3,000 for this child.
Ain't no way.
And I'm like, but what was we supposed to do? Have him at home? Like,
look, that's what I'm saying. How much was it this last time?
She had much better insurance this last time. So
$67?
No, it wasn't that, but it was like a couple hundred. It was still a couple hundred, but much. When this last time, they was like, you got a copay of $250, and we were like, $250,000. We were like, what are you talking about? No, $250. We were like, what? Like that doesn't sound like it did last time. And so she had better insurance this time around, so it was a little better. But they still nickel and diming us. We still getting little random checks for little stuff.
I'm sure.
That we were like $50 here, $100 there. And I'm like, what is this for?
Yeah, the nurse had to help your wife lactate. So now it's an extra $52.
Yeah, little stuff like that.
That's supposed to be coming out of my body naturally anyway.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's crazy. Well, Cody, I mean, do you enjoy living in the red?
No.
You don't like this show? No, I mean, I know you got you got what I really meant. Like, you don't enjoy living in Alabama.
Look, Alabama is home. It will always be home. There are things about the state that I absolutely love. There are things about Birmingham that I absolutely love even more. But I don't enjoy Kay Ivey and them making dumbass decisions in Montgomery that are literally going to affect people. Like, I mean, Medicaid should have been expanded a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, we are... Again, and this is the nerd in me, being somebody who reads all the time and is up to date with all the local news, but like all the rural hospitals, I didn't understand the shortage of rural hospitals and the effects it had on people until I went to Tuskegee. Yeah. There was a guy who got shot at a block party who died and bled out on the street. And because the closest hospital is 30 minutes away. And I think he died on the way to the hospital. First of all, it took a long time for the ambulance to get there, and then an even longer time for them to get to the hospital. And I think he died before they even reached I think he maybe died on the street. So I don't want to get the story wrong, so I'm not going to say his name, but the people at Tuskegee know who I'm talking about. I didn't understand what that meant. And so to know that all these hospitals in rural Alabama are shutting down and literally putting pressure on the healthcare system here locally, because Birmingham does so much of Alabama's, not just Birmingham. Yeah. Alabama's economy is dependent on UAB. UAB is the number one employer in the state of Alabama. So we are seeing people who are driving an hour, 90 minutes plus to come to UAB to have babies. Yeah. That is something that I'm going to have to
literally
consider.
What my wife did.
That's what I'm saying. I'm going to have to consider that, or that is a conversation that I'm going to have with my OBGYN if I were to get pregnant. What does the space look like? In terms of availability, is there going to be a bed available for me to have a baby? So anyway, it's things like that I do not align with, and I do not appreciate the white folks in Montgomery continuing to vote against, because it doesn't help anybody when you do that.
And it's going to get drastically worse
under this big ugly ass bill that Trump just passed.
Well, that, and also when the Auburn coach Tommy Tuberville,
oh my God,
if he becomes governor, which we have to try to stop, but if he becomes governor, it's going to get worse.
Doug Jones, just go ahead and announce that you are running for governor, please, so we can go ahead and galvanize and do what we need to do to get voter turnout so that we can elect you as governor, because I am not having that long-eared, big-nosed white man. I can't do it, because it's one thing. Kay Ivey is like not doing no work for real. Let's be clear. Like, she got her camaraderie of folks in Montgomery making decisions for her. Tommy Tuberville is even though he's stupid, he still has some level of competency to where he can still call the shots on certain things. Sure. Kay Ivey, I don't think, is really doing that. Sure. And so, yes, we're going to see a drastically different Alabama if he becomes governor in a year. Yeah,
it's going to be very different. And that's something that, our families are going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to deal with as well. Well, this is basically what this podcast is going to be about. People living in the red, people who have to deal with these red state agendas. And these red state agendas are not just harmful for minorities and women and people like that, but also for a lot of the people who vote for these agendas. And so we're going to be talking with people like that and more conversations between us. But I think this was a first great episode. I learned a lot about you.
I learned a lot about
that
you
I didn't
too.
know. Yeah, it sounds like you kind of knew these things, but you just had to have them confirmed.
Well, I mean, I was hypothesizing.
You were hypothesizing about the nerd in me? Okay, I see.
I don't know none of your folks. I didn't run down on your background or nothing like that, Cory.
Okay, well, I'll believe you for now. But this was a great
Yes,
conversation.
I agree. It's a great episode. Many more to come. So you guys make sure that you tune in every week for this podcast for the next few weeks. Make sure you download, tell your friends about it, and listen to this podcast anywhere you listen to podcast. Or I guess I should say, listen to what is this called? Living in the Red. Okay, let me start that over. Make sure you guys download Living in the Red. Tell your friends, family about the show, and download it anywhere you listen to podcasts.